Good morning, Garland Nixon here. It is May 1st, which just happens to be my birthday, and I'm going to do what I enjoy doing the most, which is run off at the mouth about policy. Let's talk. Good morning, Garland Nixon here. It is May 1st, and my book's looking they ain't looking so good over here behind me. My book situation is going kind of ragged. I'm going to try to straighten that up a little bit. I don't know. I'm just not happy with my books being all over creation. Anyway, there was an old, years ago, there was a cigarette advertisement in the United States that ended with, what do you want, good grammar or good taste? So I guess as long as the books are good to be read, there's plenty of good stuff back there. I guess we'll be fine. Anyway, let's move forward. So what I'm talking about now is the 2024 elections. And I think this is going to be interesting, particularly interesting because I better move my doing everything. But because I think it is important to understand the times that we are in right now. We're starting to get some interesting pushback against the militaristic policies of the United States, against imperialism, all sorts of things, both outside of the empire and inside of the empire. And I think what we're looking at now with some of the voices that are being heard is a bit of a struggle, the beginning of a struggle anyway. Hopefully we'll be long enough to see around long enough to see the struggle happening. And what is the struggle? The struggle is traditional imperialism. The people who believe, a combination, American exceptionalism / imperialism, however you want to put it. But there are people who believe that the United States is superior. Our culture is superior. Our people somehow are superior. Everything about the United States, our system of governance, everything is superior to all others. And therefore, we must export our culture to all other countries and force, using coercion, all other countries to imitate us and to do what we tell them to do and accept our way of life and accept our orders, number one. And number two, the part of it is that's the cover story. The truth of this is, I said the part of it, what I meant was the truth of it is that's the cover story. The cover story is that we're good and we want to do good and we want to improve the world. And since our culture and I don't know what that was about. Everything went out, came back. But oh man, it doesn't look like I'm having a very good signal today for some reason. Let's see what happens. It looks like I'm freezing up. Sometimes I get that, believe it or not. Ooh, this is not good. Sometimes I get that with every now and then, but it looks like we're good now. Okay, looks like my stream is strong. All right, where was I? So the cover story for the American empire and American exceptionalism, and this is important, is that the United States, our way of doing things makes life better for people. It makes people happier. It creates democracy, which implies that the people have a very strong say, have a critical part of the decision-making process for the nation. That's what it implies, right? Democracy, if you think about it, when we say democracy, it implies that the people are an integral part of the decision-making process of the United States, right? So this American exceptionalism thing implies we're doing good by taking the best system, the best culture, the best everything, the best economic model, all of it, exporting it around the world, and everyone else will be happier. That's the cover story. That's the esoteric, the inside story, the exoteric story. The reality, the outside of it is excuse me, I did it the other way around, actually. I would say that is the exoteric story. That's the outside story. That is, hey, we're making the world better by making the world like us. The inside story, the story that the people who are perpetrating this particular foreign policy know is that it's about plundering. It's about going around the world and stealing the resources of other countries. It's about using your might to go to weaker nations. That's why the United States overthrows governments. That's why the United States interferes and meddles with the internal doings of other countries. And you'll find more often than not, it has to do with two things. Number one, countries that have, whether it's bananas for the United Fruit Company, whether it's cacao for Coca-Cola or Hershey's or Nestle's, or, oil in Iraq or Venezuela, there are some natural resources that our corporations want to access either inexpensively or at no cost at all. And the United States government, the United States military ensures that that can happen. And in turn, what happens? The money flows into the United States from all of this illicit, war and treatment of other countries. And these corporations all get a piece of this, and they get their natural resources, and it goes on. So there's a big machine going on here that's going around the world, grabbing natural resources and funneling them into the mouths of this beast. Now, in recent times, there's been an additional problem that the U.S. Exceptionalist, Atlanticist, war machine, whatever you want to call them, are facing, and that is competition. Between 1990 and maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, the level of competition wasn't there. The world powers hadn't risen to the point that they have now, and there weren't other world powers aspiring to the level that they are now to be leaders throughout the world. People weren't challenging what the U.S. calls the rules-based order, and what it really means is the feudal system, the hierarchical world system, where the United States the reigns, is authority over the rest of the world and can make rules, change rules, violate rules at will. There are no rules for the U.S. empire. So what we're dealing with is an environment where or a dynamic wherein the American exceptionalist beliefs that the U.S. could do whatever it wanted around the world and nobody could stop it is running into two things. It's running into world powers that are rising to the point where they can push back and offer alternatives for countries that the United States has traditionally plundered, and to some extent even offer defense. So when the U.S. goes in and says, I will overthrow this country and take their stuff, there are other entities, Russia, China, etc., that can go into that country that can provide military assistance, be it through the Wagner Group, be it through actual in Syria, the Russian military, but can provide military assistance, economic assistance, can provide in intelligence assistance, things of that nature, diplomatic assistance. So now there's a challenge to the U.S. Hierarchy, where we're sitting at the top. So where that comes home is this: as long as this American exceptionalist hierarchy benefited the average schmuck on the street, they were willing to live with it. They were willing to turn their back on it as long as they lived a little better, as long as they got a new American car out of that was built upper Detroit, Indiana, wherever. As long as they had good jobs, they were living well, they were fine. They were willing to turn their back and say, okay, yeah, I'm getting. They weren't willing to ask, why is it that I got to pay $2 a pound for apples that are grown an hour from my house, but I only have to pay 30 cents a pound for bananas that are grown 4,000 miles away in Central America? And it's because the United States is plundering Central America, taking their stuff for nothing. And so there's basically no overhead costs other than the transportation of the bananas, because they're paying the peasants zero. Basically, they're paying them next to nothing to pick bananas and get bitten by poisonous snakes and spiders, right? But Americans weren't willing to ask that question because we were living too good off of it. That's the truth. Same with Europeans. Now, what's going on is this. What's happening to the U.S. empire is what inevitably happens to empires, and that is the standard of living of the average schlemazel, that would be us, at least me, of the average schlemazel is deteriorating. That is the problem. That is the issue here in a nutshell, right? The standard of living of the electorate is deteriorating. Therefore, the electorate will in some way, shape, or form push back. They want something done differently. They want to change, whatever. Here's the bottom line. I would argue the electorate doesn't even know what they want. Most people, they just want their standard of living to improve. In fact, there are a lot of people who will not admit that there are systemic problems in the United States, that there are problems with our economic system, which is to be to be blunt, it's a racket. It is a casino. It's been turned into a financialized casino where all the money is made in Wall Street. And if all the money is made in Wall Street and you're the average schmuck, you ain't getting none of it. And so most Americans, they're brainwashed into still thinking, oh, our system's the best, our system's great. Well, if our system is so great, why is it deteriorating? The greatest, most wonderful, most perfect system ever couldn't deteriorate. It would only get better. The fact of the matter is it is deteriorating due to the exceptional flaws in this system. And first and foremost being neoliberal capitalism. I'm going to specifically refer, I don't know. There are people that will say neoliberal capitalism is the ultimate destination of capitalism anyway, that capitalism eventually turns into neoliberal capitalism. I don't know, and I'm not one to make that argument. And I'm not even here to say capitalism, socialism, anything good, bad, or different. I'm simply saying this. This is the bus we're on right now. Neoliberal capitalism is the bus that we are riding on. All the discussions about what's good or bad or what we should or shouldn't be, that's all irrelevant. This is where we are, and this is what's happening. The specific strain of capitalism that has evolved in the West is nothing but a self-serving racket for the rich. And so therefore, now I believe we're going into a period where there's going to be a clash. And the clash is between the working class, between the average slob out here and the ideology of neoliberal capitalism. There's going to be a contradiction, particularly between, and I'm already starting to see those contradictions. I'll give you a couple of them. And we're getting into all of this, into the election, but it's important. There are those of us who believe in a level of regulation for corporations. There are those of us who believe if you just leave corporations to do whatever they want to, that they'll run amok and things will go bad. And history tells us that, right? And there are other than neoliberal capitalism argues, no, deregulate the corporations and let them do whatever they want to, right? And that's the direction we've moved, laissez-faire capitalism, what have you. Well, there are those who are diehard deregulators, deregulate everything, no regulations for any corporations, who are now looking at social media and who have now the last couple of years looking at social media saying time out. There needs to be some regulations on social media. They should look at the Twitter files, look at what Twitter's doing. Completely just a tool for the security state, the national security state. So there are those looking and saying there needs to be some roadblocks put up around what these people can and can't do and how they can be involved with the government and on and on and on. And so I say neoliberal capitalism has pushed some people out of the corners of their ideology to say there has to be deregulation for everything, and to hey, maybe there's some nuances and grays here that we need to consider. So the bottom line is a lot of people who didn't necessarily align economically in their ideology are now starting to align, I would argue, not ideologically, but practically. Here's what I mean. Practically, ideologically speaking, the libertarian and the socialist should never, it's kind of like the old Zen saying, the tiger and the shark can never battle for they have no common ground. And, that should be the way with the libertarian and the socialist. But we're seeing anti-war rallies with libertarians and socialists and conservatives and MAGA people and all kinds of people, right? Why is that? Practicality. Because now you have people that are saying, notwithstanding all of my ideological beliefs, there's a practical reality that I'm living in. My economy is collapsing. All the money is going to the billionaires. My government is not responsive to the people. This is not a democracy. I do not trust that we can have a free and fair election. So there are certain things. Government intrusion has gone too far. As far as the government, telling us, making decisions like throughout COVID, there are a lot of people of various ideologies that were in some agreement that during COVID, the government went too far as intrusion. There are people that are looking at it now saying, this economic system that we have is a fake meritocracy where we're told that the person rises to the top because they're the smartest, and the person stays on the bottom because they're the they're the stupidest or the laziest. And we look at who rises to the top in this particular system. Who's risen to the top? Joe Biden, Kamala Harris? Is that some kind of meritocracy? So those of us who argued that this was no meritocracy, again, are starting to get the practical reality to hit home, or see the practical reality hit home on everybody, to say, there's certain things that we agree with. On another one, and I think that is important, that's going to affect the 2024 election, is the idea that this country, that any country makes money, that creates a certain level of wealth, and that wealth should stay to some extent in the country, that the people should be able to share in it, rather than our government say, we're sending money to this country and that country, we're buying all of these things to go around the world, we got to deal with Taiwan and Iran and Sudan and lots of other places that India in, but we're not doing much for America. We're watching our what do you call it? We're watching our infrastructure fall apart, and violence is, and crime and all of these things are on the increase. And of course, those of us who have been following criminal the patterns of crime for years understand something. And that is, it's easy to say, look, crime because there's evil people or because they're criminals. But what history tells us is, history very clearly tells us something. And that is, when the economy goes down, crime raises. When the economy increases, when the economy goes up, crime decreases. You can blame all the people you want to. You can say, well, these are just running the street criminals who are just bad people. If only they'd stop committing crimes and put it on an individualist basis. You can do that all you want to, but the numbers are clear. When the economy is stronger, crime goes down. When the economy is weaker, crime goes up. That is easy to prove economically, practically speaking. So what can we tell you? We can tell you that if our economy is stronger, then we're going to have less crime. That it was easily predictable that, as you see after COVID, after the lockdowns, after the wipeout of all of these businesses, and individual business and small businesses, massive homelessness and unemployment, banks are crashing, unemployment's rampant, all of these bad things going in our economy. It's easy to predict that crime will increase. Why? Because that's what happens every single time we go into a depression, a recession, downturn in economics, every single time. And so you have people, for ideological reasons, saying, yeah, look at that. That's in the blue cities, right? Because, and that implies that we have two countries. Well, there's the blue country and then the red country. This is not America. We're arbitrarily dividing America up using languages. Well, America is a nation, and America is a nation that's on the course of the ideological course of neoliberal capitalism. That's it. Neoliberalism, neoliberal capitalism, whatever you want to call it. That's the course that America is on. And you can arbitrarily use language to separate it. Well, that's a blue city. And then you go, and I would ask you, how's Mississippi doing? How's Louisiana doing? The entire state's impoverished, right? So the idea that the blue cities do it worse, the red, then the people in the Democrats are going to say, oh yeah, well, look at the red states. 9 of the 10 poorest states in America is the red states. That's true. Well, look at the cities, crime and poverty in the cities. That's true. It's all true. Why? Because this is one nation that's going to hell. And one of the problems is that rather than come together and see that we've got one nation that's crashing, the Democrats, the blue cult, as I call them, are looking for an excuse to blame it on the Republicans and say, look at the Republican states, they're poor. And the people in the red cult, who don't want to admit that they're in a cult also, and that their cult is a neoliberal capitalist cult that's just as guilty of destroying this country as the other cult, will say, but look at the blue cities. This or such is going on in the blue cities. And everybody looks for something to justify why their ideological kindred would save the country and the others would destroy it. And the fact of the matter is this: you're only separating those two parties using language. In reality, they're sitting side by side every day up on Capitol Hill. They're voting on the same thing. Send more money to Ukraine, more weapons to Taiwan, more subs to Iran. Hey, we've got North Korea. We got to send nukes over there. They're all voting on the same thing. And meanwhile, they leave you to sit around and argue over semantics of whose country, whose what part of the country is ruled by which of the two cults and which one is doing worse. And the bottom line is they're both ruled by the two cults and they're both going worse. So off we plunge into 2024. And here's the big story. Here's the big deal. Let's get to it. Because, okay, first of all, Trump, again, I'm no fan of hardly anybody here. So I'm just going to name names. We'll start with Trump. Trump comes out and what does he say? Hey, I need to end this Ukraine thing. Hey, we need to stop these neocons in the State Department. Oh, we need to stop all this. We need to. We don't need to have these warmongers and neocons. Which, let's be honest, he ain't saying nothing I don't agree with. I agree with all of that. Now, you can certainly make an argument that Donald Trump, when he was in, appointed Pompeo, appointed Bolton, brought in the worst, most horrible neocons you can ever think, and didn't act. And basically, he brought a bunch of neocons in, and to some extent, and in some instance, he had to fight with him because they wanted to go much further than he wanted to go. But he brought him in. Now there are those that could argue also that, well, Trump learned his lesson. He's going to go in another direction if he gets back in. I don't know. All I'm saying is this: his rhetoric is a rhetoric of anti-war. It's not anti-imperialism. It is anti-war to some extent. Let me put it to you like this. Not necessarily anti-war. It's turning down the volume. The neocons turn it. You ever be around a stereo where somebody turns it up so high and it's a cheap stereo that all you get is static and all you get is, horrible distortion? The neocons turn our foreign policy up so high, our interventionist, warmongering foreign policy. So the neocons turn it up so high that it's just it screeches the ears. It's painful to listen to. That's how high the neocons turn our foreign policy up. So it seems to me that Donald Trump saying, let's turn it down to a point where it doesn't make your ear, it isn't nails on a chalkboard. It doesn't make your ears bleed, right? But he's still saying things like, hey, I think we should invade Mexico, to bomb, attack, use the military against Mexico. Well, really? So now all of a sudden you're saying we shouldn't go to war with China and Russia and blah, blah, blah. Good enough, but we should bomb Mexico? So again, Trump will give us some lesser war rhetoric. Okay, he doesn't want to start the big ones with the big boys, but he's still happy to be involved in illicit, illegal, immoral, and unethical military interventions. And if you let me tell you something, it's the camel under the camel's nose under the tent. If you allow the military-industrial complex to continue what they're doing, they're going to just take it further. If you say, okay, let's bomb Mexico, they're going to try to take it to Venezuela or Cuba or Nicaragua. If you say, let's do this, let's go for an inch, they're in for a mile. So to me, what Trump is trying to do, I understand it from a political perspective, which is simply turn down the volume, but I don't agree with it at all. And I don't trust him to do it. I don't trust that they wouldn't kill him if he tried. Let's go to that. There are other voices. You got Marianne Williamson coming in, who's just nothing but a prettier version of Joe Biden in a dress, if you ask me. She's talking a lot of nice stuff, right? And I used to watch Marianne Williamson in the past, and she said the booga booga stuff about love and, materializing things that you want through thought and all that kind of stuff. That sounds wonderful, and some of it's a lot of fun and all, and maybe something to it, but she's going down the path of the liberal warmonger interventionalist. Oh, yes, we've got to stand up for the Nazis in Ukraine. Get out of here, Marianne Williamson. So what Marianne Williamson's game plan is, we understand that. We've seen Bernie do it enough, right? It is to do some slight pushbacks on Biden in some areas where it's safe for him. Some very light pushback in some areas where it's safe for Biden, where it won't hurt him too much. And then after they cheat you, after they lie, cheat, and steal in the DNC to make sure you don't get it, then your job after you've been knocked out is to come back and endorse Biden. So Marianne Williamson she's playing Bernie's. I guess maybe he's getting a little too old for that role, kind of like a movie. And they're like, hey, let's do the new Indiana Jones. Yeah, well, Harrison Ford's a little old for that. Okay, let's find somebody newer for the role. We'll put him in there and we'll put somebody newer for the role, right? That's all she is. Bernie's getting a little long in the tooth for the role of the person who elbows Biden a little bit. So Marianne Williamson comes in. She'll throw a couple very light elbows at Biden. She'll bow out gracefully once she's cheated, and then she'll endorse him. Forget Marianne Williamson. She's part of the problem, not part of the solution. Now we go to RFK Jr. RFK Jr. is interesting, and he's his rhetoric. As I said, though, let me go back. Trump's rhetoric causes some problems for the machine, because his rhetoric is at least his rhetoric is, we need to stop the Ukraine war. We need to turn down the volume on wars. They don't want to hear that crap. They do not want to hear that. So while there are weaknesses in Trump's game, God only knows, his rhetoric is part of this issue. That his rhetoric is part of the dynamic that's going to cause these problems for the 2024 election. Because, and let me just sum it all up here before I go to RFK Jr. Because the war machine has their guy in Biden. They got their neocons of all neocons in, right? And they've done all kind of terrible dirt and robbery and theft and cheating, right? They can't afford, if you're running a company, let me put it like this. You're running a company and you and your crew get in charge of this corporation, and you're filling your pockets, you're embezzling money, you're stealing stuff, you're doing all kinds of stuff, you're paying for hookers and drugs and taking trips and giving money to your girl, keeping her in a nice apartment and driving a Beamer, and all that's going on the corporate funds, right? You're doing all this stuff. You can't afford to lose and have new management come in, because if new management comes in, they're going to start looking over the ledgers and say, where the hell did all this money go to Stormy Daniels and blah, blah, blah for an apartment and a Beamer and, Saks Fifth Avenue. Whoa. So you have been involved in all kinds of crap running a corporation. You can't afford for new people to come in who may be honest, or at least more honest than you, or have political motivation to take you out. Even if they're crooked as you are, they may have the political motivation to embarrass you or take you out. You can't afford to have new management come into that corporation because your hands are so dirty. You see where I'm going? The war machine has Biden et al. In. These people blew up the friggin' Nord Stream. Do you think they can afford to have an honest person come in and look over things? Let's take a look at these. Meetings between Jake Sullivan and Tony Blinken and holy moly, they said they're going to blow up the Nord Stream, right? You may have someone, particularly, just think this: what if, after charging Trump with a million different things, they're going to charge Trump with mopery on the high seas, they're going to charge him with exposing himself to a blind person, they're going to charge Trump with everything they could possibly make up, right? What happens if Trump wins? You think he ain't going to win some, as Snoop Doggy Dogg says, you think Trump ain't going to want some get backs? Oh, yes, he is. So what happens? Trump comes in, and just recently he said, they said, hey, who blew up the Nord Stream? He said, better not answer that. Might get America in trouble. We all know the answer. So what happens after years of investigating Trump? Trump becomes president. You think he ain't going to look into that? You think he ain't going to look into that and have his people look into it? You think there ain't a whole lot of GOP people that want some get backs that would look at that and say, damn, we got all of the information right here, and would say, here's what we're going to do. This is what I do. I'm going to go out to the militaries that are involved, and everybody that was involved in that, I'm going to get as the commander-in-chief. I'm going to give an order as the commander-in-chief that anyone who is involved in that action, I'm requiring and ordering right now to report to me and give me a full report on what happened. And anyone who was involved with that will be free from prosecution. They will not be held accountable in any way. And in fact, they will be rewarded for their honesty. Think about this. So now I say to the military, anybody that was involved, Pure amnesty. You come to me and you tell me what happened, where, when, where, who, what, how, why, etc. Number one. Number two, if you are involved, you get amnesty. There will be no action taken against you. Number three, if you were involved and you talked, not only will there be nothing taken against you, you will be given a $100,000 reward. Last but not least, if you don't, you'll be prosecuted for failure to go along with the order of the President of the United States. So I set that up, and I say that. What do you think is going to happen at that point? You're going to have some people that will come forward because they're being told that you're telling the military, look, if you talk, nothing will happen to you. You will be rewarded. You will not be prosecuted. If you don't talk, you will be prosecuted. And I find out that you knew and you didn't talk, you're going to pay. That you will feel the full power and the full force and might of the President of the United States. But if you talk, you'll be rewarded if you tell me the truth. You see what I'm saying? If I'm Trump, if I'm a new president and I come in and I want Biden and those people to pay, I can get them because their hands are dirty. So the war machine and everybody involved cannot afford, at this point in 2024, they can't afford to lose the election. Yet, it's possible they will. So, and I would all argue if they're running Biden and Kamala, it's likely they will. In fact, I don't see how you win with this clown, and particularly considering the fact that First Republic Bank just now was crapped out, right? We're on the edge of something very nasty that could make 2008 look like the Roaring 20s. Now let's look at something I think that has to be taken into account. We're going to read it together, and I think this is going to be problemos for 2020 to 2024. Why the war machine is really got problems, and they're going to act up. Okay, this is from Kennedy's. Let's read some of the stuff. This is from RFK's page, right? As President Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will start the process of unwinding empire, we will bring the troops home. We will stop racking up unpayable debt to fight one war after another. The military will return to its proper role of defending our country. We will end the proxy wars, bombing campaigns, covert operations, coups, paramilitaries, and everything else that has become so normal, most people don't know it's happening. But it is happening, a constant drain on our strength. It's time to come home and restore this. You see the problems they're having? We have to stop seeing the world in terms of enemies and adversaries. As John Quincy Adams wrote, Americans go not abroad in search of monsters to destroy. RFK will revive a lost thread of American foreign policy thinking, the one championed by his uncle JFK, who over his 1,000 days in office had become a firm anti-imperialist. He wanted to exit Vietnam. He defied the Joint Chiefs of Staff, refused to bomb Cuba. All right, so he goes on. He wanted to reverse the imperialistic policies of Truman and Eisenhower. Listen to this. Listen to this. Unthinkable. Listen to this about what RFK did. He will find a diplomatic solution that brings peace to Ukraine and brings our resources back where they belong. We will offer to, listen to this, and this would really resolve the issue because this gets to the heart of the problem in Eastern Europe, which was NATO expansion, right? And NATO expansion was as a result of the U.S. trying to dominate the world. But listen to this. We will offer, he's saying, we're going to make an offer to Russia. Who else would you make this offer to? We will offer. There's only one group of people you make this offer to. We will offer to withdraw our troops and nuclear-capable missiles from Russia's border. Russia will withdraw its troops from Ukraine and guarantee its freedom and independence. UN peacekeepers will guarantee peace to the Russian-speaking eastern regions. We'll put an end to this war. You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying that'll work or not work. I'm saying if you start with those few things right there, you'll get a deal with Russia. You'll get a deal. If you start there, you will get a deal. If you say, look, we're getting our missiles off your border, we're getting our troops off your border, we're willing to guarantee protection for the people in the eastern region of Ukraine, which is now the western region of Russia. If you start on that kind of conversation, you're going to get a deal. Because one of the big issues is NATO expansion. And in the very first sentence, you're addressing NATO expansion. So that is the road right there to European security And that's the road to really world security to a large extent, right? Russian security and European security are inextricably linked. So the idea that somehow you can menace Russia and that's going to make Europe secure is absurd. The only way to make Europe secure is to make Russia secure in all reality. But that ain't what this is about. This is about the United States maintaining domination over the world. In fact, we have compromised the security of both Russia and Europe in order to try to maintain domination. It's the opposite of what we say we're doing. So here's my point about election 2024. So now RFK is saying, look, we're going to get away from imperialism. We're going to get away from neoconservative policies. We're going to stop trying to dominate the world. He's saying we will end the neocon project for world domination. To say, because think about it, the neocon project for world domination entails at this point, at two things minimum. I would say three things. Number one, surround China with bases and missiles and menace China and contain China. In other words, stop China's economy from growing. Number two, surround Russia with bases and missiles, so quote, contain Russia. In other words, weaken and impoverish Russia, tear Russia apart and steal all of its resources. That's the Ukraine project. And therefore, we go ahead and we dominate the world. RFK is literally saying, no, I'm not down with that. We're going to back away from the neocon project of world domination, and we're going to work to ensure ensure that both Russia and Europe feel secure. And boom, what do you know? And guess what comes after that? Isn't it obvious? What comes after that is we're backing off of China too. It is a different version. It's simply saying, no, the military industrial complex and the deep state and the media and all of these entities that are profiting off of this, all of these entities that are pushing this ideology of American exceptionalism, American corporate exceptionalism, of American theft around the world of resources and world domination and hegemony, that we're going to disembark from that train and go in another direction. Now, as I said earlier, if you are running a company and you're involved in all kinds of crime, you cannot afford for someone else to come in and look through the closet and find it. So if RFK will say that, then damn sure they know they cannot afford for this guy to come in and start snooping around and find out what all they've been doing. They don't want him to know. They can't afford it because the people may find out and then they'd have to go to jail. So the U.S. military machine is going to look at that. And the problem they got is I think there'll be other people, maybe Tulsi Gabbard. I think Gabbard will be in at some point, maybe as an independent, which would be interesting. She may run as a Republican. I don't think she's going to run as a Democrat, but it would be interesting for her to run as an independent for this reason. You know, it would throw the military industrial complex off. It's easy for them to attack Trump, and they will attack him and say they're attacking him because he's corrupt, he's evil, he's a bad guy. But in reality, I think more than anything else, they're attacking him because of his foreign policy. Is not neocon enough for him. I'm not defending his foreign policy. I'm saying it's not where they want it to be. So they can strike at Trump and the Republican Party. RFK is here. Well, they're going to call him every anti-vaxxer in the world, and they're going to strike at him over there, right? But now you bring in Tulsi Gabbard or somebody else running from the independent lane, and now they got to strike an independent, and it's just getting tougher. You're making them punch in all different directions from all different angles. It's not going to be easy. And there will be some level of unity. See, that's the next problem. If one person comes out, let me go to 2016. One of the things that Bernie Sanders did in 2016 that was valuable, was very valuable, was introduced a new part of the discussion. He talked very populist. He talked about containing corporations. He talked about some of the money for this big war machine going towards the people. He talked about some good stuff. You know, there was some areas of Bernie's platform that were very threatening to the mainstream machine. And of course, they had to take him out. They couldn't have that. Well, that being said, he changed the conversation. And I think it was valuable for some people, for a lot of people, and ultimately changed the conversation because a lot of Bernie supporters jumped ship out of the Democratic Party because they realized that the Democratic Party wasn't acting in their best interest and that it wasn't, in fact, democratic at all. Okay. It woke a lot of eyes. So now, and why did I say that? Because conversation, Bernie Sanders changed some things in the conversation that I thought were valuable. And then he went on and, of course, did what he did, always does. After he got cheated, he endorsed Biden anyway. So that's Mary. We don't need Bernie because that's Marianne Williamson's job this go round, and she's going to be good at it. So now, if Trump has come out and he said we ought to get out of Ukraine, this is dangerous, we don't want a nuclear war, these fruitcakes are trying to start World War III. Good, I'm glad he said it. Needed to be said right off the bat. You're charged, Trump, and they're going to charge him with crime after crime, and his biggest crime is what he said. So they can say, we'll charge Trump with crime, we'll discount him, we'll toss him aside. Here comes RFK saying far worse, saying we need to get the hell off of Russia's border. We need to stop all this warmongering crap. We need to stop the empire. We need to close these bases and bring these troops home. We need to, and they're like, oh God, well, whatever. Anti-vaxxer. So now if somebody comes up the middle, and I don't mean the middle for the perspective of ideologically, no, independence in America is not the middle between the Democrat and the Republican Party. That's not the way it works now. But more often than not in the U.S. now, independents are people who have become sick of the system, who have had it with a crooked and corrupt system and don't trust any of their parties and don't trust the system anymore. So if in fact a Tulsi Gabbard or somebody, particularly Tulsi Gabbard, I personally would like to see Tulsi Gabbard run as an independent. Because then what you have is you have an RFK Jr. and maybe somebody else, excuse me, will come into from the Democratic, the blue cult and say, we need to end this crap. We need to stop this warmongering. I love the way RFK Jr. is saying it. Trump and the Republican Party saying, I'm the populist, let's end this. Now, there is a nasty strain in the Republican Party that is similar to the Democratic Party, who are simply just as warmonger. They're just saying, look, we got to stop this stuff with Ukraine. That's crazy. It's China we really need to go after. No, we don't need to go after one. We don't need to have to go after one nuclear superpower. We need to go after the other. These are the people who are like, Biden's terrible. He's horrible. He's a liar, a cheat, a thief. All of his policies are bad and wrong, except his policies about China. Now I'm 100% on board with those. Again, you got people like that who, you can't get to those people, and they are where they are. They are part of the problem, not part of the solution. They want war just simply with a different group. They're going to support the military-industrial complex just simply in a different direction. So they're part of the problem, not part of the solution. They look at when the national security state made all the Russiagate lies and blah, 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 every other week Russia's attacking us. They're trying to eat our children. They're trying to boil us alive. The Russians are doing everything evil. 51 intelligence officials said that Russia's doing something evil. The Democrats believe all that crap, and the liberals. And these were the people pointing the fingers at them. How stupid are they? And as soon as the same national security spooks come out and say, oh, yeah, a spy balloon. Yeah, I knew it. I knew China was doing a spy balloon. We got to stop China. We got to stand up for Ukraine. Taiwan. They're just as stupid. They're the same people. They just got on a different uniform. That's all it is. The same people with a different uniform. They just have a different boogeyman. They're just as easily manipulated by the national security state. They just got a different uniform on. And when the national security state points these idiots in this direction, there's Russia over there, and they laugh at those idiots. But then when the national security state points them in a direction, now there's China over there. Yes, sir, those idiots should have known it wasn't Russia. It was really China. Isn't that right, CIA? The CIA is like, sure is. Keep up the good work, buddy. So now the contradiction becomes the United States government, the machine, is arguing that around the world, we need democracy. We have to stand up for democracy. And in fact, we are a democracy. But the one thing they can't allow to happen in 2024 is democracy. They can't allow the American people to hear alternative perspectives, ones that would oppose their neocon actions. They can't allow them to see these candidates talk and give their speeches. They can't allow them to make up their own decisions because the American people are more likely to choose a less warlike path if given a fair and honest option. They can't do that. If the military industrial complex, they're making too much money. You've got the members of Congress that have supported all this warmongering. If the sentiment, think about it, if you're sitting in Congress and the sentiment against changes against your warmongering ways, guess what's going to happen? If the sentiment starts to drift, you can't back. What do you think? That AOC and the Democrats, the Republicans, all of them together, who are all together with warmongering, do you think that they can suddenly just do a 180 and say, come to think of it, we're against Ukraine, bring the troops home? If the sentiment changes and an anti-war candidate starts to dominate, they got to attack them. And here's the other part of it. It's not just going to happen if it happens. It wouldn't just happen for the presidential race. It'd be down the line. There'd be people challenging, especially when people see it working. If people who consider running for Congress or running for Senate or House, if they see somebody pushing this anti-war, anti-imperialist kind of sentiment having success at the presidential level, there's going to be people jumping in and just taking the same rhetoric, saying, hey, it looks like the sentiment in America is moving that way. I'll take that direction. And in view of the way things are right now, that may not seem as likely. But what happens 6 months from now? Look, within the last 24 hours, what is it? The Republic Bank or Republican Bank? What are these banks? Another bank has collapsed. Layoffs are cranking up. This discussion is not as relevant now as it will be in the event that we are in a severe economic downturn, or let's say crisis, where the foundation of our banking system is either at risk or has turned inside out because people are asking for their money back and the banks don't have it, and the government doesn't have enough to bail them out. The government's got like $200 billion and the FDIC has like $200 billion. The Federal Deposit Insurance Commission has like $200 billion in its coffers. So that if banks start to fail and you say, oh, well, that's okay, I got $50,000 in the bank, I got $5,000, whatever. Well, that's covered by the FDIC. Yeah, up to $200 billion. And there's like somewhere between $9 and $17 trillion in savings accounts. Guess how long that's going to last? 5 seconds. In other words, they can't bail people out. No, the truth is that your savings account in the United States is not protected by the FDIC because they don't have the money to protect them all. Just a small, tiny little percentage. 200 billion out of, let's just go low, 9 trillion ain't gonna get them far, is it? So bottom line is, I think that there will be economic I'm not going to say catastrophes. The potential is there that between now and election 2024, there's an economic catastrophe. I think at minimum, there will be a severe economic downturn and significant economic pain, which will cause people to even more look at our candidates and say, we need help here, because the situation is going to get ugly real bad in a hurry. So I think we're going to see economic pain and downturn, and the same in the EU. There's going to be significant pressure from the EU, significant pressure from the bottom. And that's where we get to the conclusion of this issue. At that point, what does the military industrial complex do? What does the national security state do? What do the parties do? The war, the political war, will be between the people in 2024 and this unelected political / military / national security machine that's hanging on for dear life. They can't afford for a Biden and a Harris and Jake Sullivan and all of these crazy neocons. They cannot afford for these people to be thrown out of office and have somebody who's even thinking about being honest, who's even considering going in another direction. They can't afford for that to happen. So they have to pull out every dirty trick that they have. And it ain't going to be easy for them. And it still might not work. But as the more desperate they'll get, the further they'll go. They're going to, I suspect they're going to charge Trump with 50 million different things, which of course is going to create a dilemma. The more they go after Trump, the more obvious it becomes that they're just going after him, that the more they go after Trump, the more it looks like a political persecution. The first charges, particularly in from the perspective of if you don't think that those charges are very valid, if you look at what they charge Trump for, and you say, for God's sake, you're saying for the first time ever in the history of this country, you had no choice but finally to move forward and to charge a president. Obviously, clearly, it had to be something that rose to a level that you couldn't turn your back on it. What was it? Oh, yeah, he paid off some babe that he used to fool around with, allegedly, because he didn't want anybody to know. Really? So when everybody looks at that, they're like, that doesn't hold water. Right. When I hear that you had to go after the president, finally, it was a desperate situation. You couldn't possibly turn your back on this level of heinous crime. And we actually look at what the crime was. It's like saying we had to go after Trump. We had no choice. What did he do? His tag light was out, spitting on the sidewalk, Mopri on the high seas, and I don't even know what that is, but whatever it is, we had to go after Trump for that. It doesn't hold water, right? So people will look at that, and now more charges are coming. You know, they're going to charge Trump with everything, January 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th, whatever the hell. They don't care. They'll charge him with days that don't even exist. He performed a crime on February the 30th. Yeah, but there's only 28 days and 29 on a leap year. Yeah, well, that's how evil Trump is. He didn't even care about the calendar. He created an extra day just so he could create a crime, commit a crime, and we had to charge him for it. Charge after charge after charge with Trump, which will make him pull further and further away from DeSantis and the other people. The more they charge him, the more and the sicker people get of this system, the more people are going to say the system's going after Trump. Man, they really hate him. He must really be the man we want. They are going to want somebody that the system despises. So the system has that paradox of the more they attack a candidate, the more they legitimize the candidate as the anti-politician, as anti-system. In fact, if I was running, I would brag. I'd say, watch, the system's going to come after me. The system is terrible. They're screwing you, blah, blah. Watch them come after me. Watch them lie. If I was running and I was being interviewed, I'd start the interview by telling the interviewer, like, MSNBC, what do you think, Garland? Well, I think that as soon as I start hitting a couple of high notes, you're going to start talking over me. What do you mean? Well, I've been watching you guys interview for the last several years. And every time a potential presidential candidate, every time a candidate comes on, and once they start saying something that pushes back against what you guys believe in, you just talk all over them. So I will just say to the people of America, I'd look into the camera, what you want to particularly focus on is when this person starts talking over me and starts cutting me off, that's when you know you need to take notes on that, because that's what they can't stand. You know, I'd take that perspective. I'd take an adversarial perspective to point that kind of stuff out, because you know that's what's coming. MSNBC, CNN, Fox, all of them will join hands. And they'll circle the wagons along with the military industrial complex and with the national security state. I mean, they're loaded with national security state people already. Hey, next, we're going to talk about Trump and how evil he is. And JFK, he's a madman. We have a former CIA director, Joe Ho Schmittenfield. There you go. A former CIA director will be there to do. But they have no choice. And it's going to get obvious. It's going to glare. And then what are they going to do? I'll put it like this. They can't shoot them all. Hey, we got Trump, we got RFK, and Tulsi Gabbard. Can we get them all in a plane together at the same time? No, they won't do it. How about a bus? No. A car? No. How about on a park? No. In a McDonald's? No. They're not coming all together because I think they're going to know your plan, and they ain't going to do it. So you're going to have a very desperate machine out here in 2024 that is looking for a way out, that is looking for a way to keep the Joe Biden, Victoria Nulands of the world in power. And how they're going to do it, I don't know, but I would just keep an eye on that. Let's maintain this discussion and enjoy ourselves as best we can as we move forward. Wow. Okay. Let's look and see if there's any super chats. All right, first super chat. No such thing as deregulation, just changing the rules to make your business easier. Keep on rocking. Thank you very much. We're going to keep on rocking, as One-Eyed Monkey says. My cherry is 39. Dissident voices are more important than ever now. Absolutely. Don't stop pushing back. Don't stop believing. You remember that song? A great song from my era. So, I'm telling on myself. All right. And that's it. Okay. How can a black man support a party that created the KKK and not support a person Rosa Parks supported Donald Trump? Look, first of all, here's what I say. The world needs less historians and more pioneers. Who supported the KKK, when, where, what, not is irrelevant. The bottom line is this. These two parties are both crap. They're both garbage. The idea that I'm going to pick the Democrats because way back when they supported the KKK, or I'm going to say, well, the Republican Party, they're conservatives, and the KKK were in fact the conservative base, right? That geographically speaking, where were the KKK located in the South? Where was their home base? Where was their power base in the South? And where's the power base and the home base for the Republican Party in the South? Now, I could get into all of that, right? And I could say, well, so if I'm a Democrat, I make that argument. If I'm a Republican, I say, you guys started the KKK. And then I say, yes. And all of the KKK people in our party left when we gave black people to vote and went to your party because they were so racist. And then we argue about which party is racist and history, and we turn into historians, right? All good and fine. Today, what do we have? Today, we have two warmongering parties that don't give a damn about black, white, green, gray, or grizzly. They're looking out for money, and they're going to bomb whoever the hell they can and go to the world, and they don't give a crap about us as a working class. I think we need to come together from the perspective of economic alliance. Look, when I was at that Rage Against the War Machine speaking, one of the things that I talked about was there's people out here that are regular people, right? I'm a regular kind of guy. I got a car. I got a truck. I got a pickup truck. I actually have a pickup truck, right? And I know how to change the brakes on a car. I know how to sweat pipe. I bet there's people in the audience that know what I mean when I say, hey, you know how to sweat pipe. They know how to solder pipe. When I was growing up, my dad was a longshoreman. He had a hard hat on. That's the way I grew up. And he worked on cars. And I remember standing outside, hey, hand me a wrench, Garland. Take that starter off, Garland. That's a normal American way. And I could be a Republican. I could be a Democrat. I could be white. I could be black. There's a lot of people who listen to my shows and say, yeah, my dad wore a hard hat when I was a kid and went to work. Yeah, I remember when we were changing the brakes on our car when I was a kid. Oh, we had to get the lawnmower going and all the things that people do. And the point I made was the people who are our adversaries grew up. Tony Blinken, he didn't do that crap. He went to the finest schools. They went to Harvard. They went to Yale. They went to wherever. They were Rhodes Scholars. They were doing all of these things. None of them went to Vietnam. None of them went to the war. No. They all got out of that stuff. So my point was, we can argue about, it's the Democrats that are evil. No, it's the Republicans that are evil. Yeah, you're right. It is the Democrats and Republicans that are evil. But the leadership of those, the point being, I think plain old working class people. I was law enforcement for years. I got up, I worked shifts. I did all that kind of stuff, right? People who, firemen, regular old people need to come together and say, hey, I'm not getting screwed because I'm a Democrat. I'm not getting screwed because I'm a Republican. The regular old working class, everyday schmuck is getting screwed. All of our money are going to the Bill Gateses and the Bezos and the Koch brothers and all of these people. The billionaires, the rich system is extracting money from the working class. That's us, and filling their pockets. And we're the ones that are suffering. And so my opinion is we need to stop arguing about who started the KKK back and when, and back in the 1860s. Have you ever heard of the Whigs? That's the Whigs that we should be. No, I think it's the Know Nothing part. Now get out of here. Most people don't even really understand political history to a point where they could make that argument relative, including me. And I know political history a bit, but not enough that I could make that relative to a neoliberal reality that we're living in today. That's different. What I can say is that regular old working class schmucks, that be they white, black, Puerto Rican, whatever you call it, be they wherever they're living in California or they're living in Mississippi, wherever, if they get up, or if they live in France, I don't care, Northern England, if they get up in the morning and it's cold outside and they go to work and they make a living, they may repair transmissions, they may sell parts, whatever the heck they do. These are the people that are all getting screwed. These are the people that need to come together. And so my point is this: could you support a party like the Democrats? Nah. Like the Republicans? Nah. I couldn't support the party. Could I support an individual who took the right position? Yes. I will look at every politician individually. And I may support a politician individually who takes the positions that I believe in. But I'm not going to make the argument that, oh, the blue cities, they're the ones that are suffering in America. They're poor. No, it's the red states. They're the ones that are poor. No, it's because this is that just pushes that team blue versus team red mentality. And I ain't down with that at all, man. It's time for team regular old working class people to get together and stand up for our rights. The billionaires are standing up for theirs. They're all going to work together to determine who gets elected. And they want somebody like Joe Biden who's going to look out, or I believe Ron DeSantis or some of these other people who are going to look out for the billionaires. That's what they want. And we got to look out for our own interests. They're looking out for theirs. We got to look out for ours. And that includes not squabbling over things that are unimportant and not being historians. It includes us moving forward and saying, what can we do in the situation that we're dealing with today to better our ourselves. Okay, anything else? Let me go to Rockfin. Nope, nothing on Rockfin. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. I gotta run, and appreciate everybody for sharing this hour or so this morning with me on May 1st, my birthday. I officially turned 30 years old, give or take a few years today. And as a 30-year-old, you know, life's very, very difficult here, but I'm going to try to figure out what's going on in this frightening old world. Also, don't forget, before I leave, it is my birthday, so maybe someone will go to Patreon, PayPal, buy me a coffee, Cash App, all that stuff is floating around the top. If you can do a birthday thing to the channel, a birthday, what is it? Donation to the channel, it would be highly appreciated. But if you can't afford it, don't worry. You know, use the money for your family and take care of your family. First things first. Additionally, don't forget, last but not least, as I said, just Patreon, buy me a coffee, PayPal, all of that stuff. A lot of people like buy me a coffee. Buymeacoffee.com now, you can actually do just like Patreon. If you want to do a monthly subscription, thing, you can do that now instead of just individual donations or buy me a coffee. Rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. Don't forget, you please go there. You can become a free member. It costs absolutely nothing. And you can see all of my stuff. All of my shows, except one, and that's Wednesday mornings from 9 to 10 a.m. I do a subscription only, but I'm not going to be doing that probably much for this month because Scott Ritter's out of the country. This Wednesday, I'm going to have, I don't know if you know Gerald Salente. He's cool. I'm going to have some great people on Wednesday mornings, starting with Gerald Salente. He's a blast. He's a lot of fun. So, but please go to my Rockfin. Doesn't cost anything. Become a member of my Rockfin channel in case they throw me off YouTube. And then, after you've become a member of my Rockfin channel, if you can afford it, please support and become a subscriber to my Rockfin channel. It's $14.99 a month if you can afford it. If you sign up for a year, it's about $12.40 a month because they give you a couple of months free. So if you can afford it, sign up to support and become a subscriber on my Rockfin channel. You don't have to. If you can't do it, certainly understand it, but it would be appreciated to strengthen the channel. If not, just become a member because you'll see all my stuff. Rockfin is it's a free speech platform. So if they kick me off of YouTube, I'm still there. And there's a lot of good stuff on Rockfin. Go to Rockfin. If nothing else, just go there and look around at the other shows. I will guarantee you will love a lot of the shows on Rockfin that aren't anywhere else. People here know about The Last American Vagabond, Slow News Day with Steve Poikin, and shows like there's great Jason Bermas has a show on there. Then all of the regular stuff, the Jimmy Dores, the Durans, all of them are on Rockfin too. So check out Rockfin. Everybody, thanks a lot. I'm out.